Hello everyone and welcome!
Welcome to our astronomy class. My name is Professor Delaney and this is...
I'm Professor Mafalda Bones.
Thank you so much for joining our astronomy class today.
It is my pleasure. I truly love learning about astronomy and the arts.
As do I. And astronomy is an ancient art, both magical and non-magical. And today we're going to give you a brief introduction, including some of the history around astronomer witch Celestina Cresswell. Are you familiar with her and her work?
Familiar with her? She is only the major figurehead of every single astrological and astronomical magical study. She is the big name.
Indeed she is, and she has pioneered many techniques, magical spells, and so many other things that both witches, wizards, and muggles use today. We are joined by our familiar Tesla, also very, very engaged in astronomy here. But today we want to start off by talking about one of the main subjects of astronomy, which is stars. And stars are really important, not only because we have one at the center of our planetary system, but because they are all over in our night sky. And do you have some more information on stars for us, Professor?
Well, I think one of the most important things to really think about as you're approaching astronomy is what a star actually is.
Right, and most people just see them in the night sky and think it's a bright point of light, when actually they are these massive balls of gas way far away from the Earth itself, but they're actually burning, which a lot of people don't think about. They're burning in the sense that they're made out of hydrogen and helium gas, but they go through this process called fusion, and fusion is rather complicated, but it happens in all stars.
Our own star, Sol, is actually a yellow dwarf star. And suns are also really unique in the sense that they have so much mass. And that is what is holding all of the planets in our solar system together as we all rotate together through space.
Right. And there's actually this really cool interplay between mass, gravity, and this fusion that keeps the star together because it's so huge, it has a lot of mass, and that gravity is pulling it in on itself. So it would like to shrink, but the process of fusion, which smashes two atoms together and fuses their nuclei, releases a lot of energy expanding outward. So the gravity pulling in and the fusion pushing out keeps stars at their approximate same size, which is actually really good for us because if there was too much fusion, the sun would swell and swallow the solar system. If there was too little fusion, the gravity would pull it in and make it
Black hole.
a black hole, indeed.
That would be catastrophic.
We would all be sucked in. But it would be a fascinating process.
Another mistake I feel young astronomers tend to make is that they don't see the sun and the stars as the same type of body.
It's hard to think of it as so because the sun's
really
so
is.
near us and the other stars are so far away.
I think that is an important distinction, and separate the moon as not a star, as not a marking in the sky that can be manipulated, but the sun and the light that are coming from other stars all can be manipulated. I think that's a very important distinction to make.
Yes, that's a good point, especially about the moon, which is reflected light, and which is one of Earth's satellites, not a solar satellite orbiting the sun. It's orbiting the Earth instead. Celestial navigation particularly is really important for a exploring witch or wizard.
I would argue it's the cornerstone of every civilization. It's important to know where you are and where you're going.
Indeed.
And you can even see across multiple cultures there have been great understandings of the stars and how they operate with each other and within each other, leading to a lot of lore about constellations or the happenings of the celestial bodies.
Yes, and I'm so glad you brought up constellations. We're going to talk a little bit about constellations today. Now, there are 88 modern recognized constellations. Now, most of these are based off Greek mythology and astronomy.
The majority of them are Greek.
But there are a lot of cultures that contributed to these constellations stories. And so a constellation is a group or a pattern of stars that is easily recognizable. And you can use this for not only storytelling like other cultures use, but in navigation. And so these constellations create pictures that you can identify and tell where you're needing to go. For example, are you familiar with the constellation Ursa Minor?
Yes, it actually has the North Star in it. This star is called Polaris. It doesn't move no matter where the Earth moves, because it's at what we call the celestial pole. So when the Earth rotates, it's at the part where wherever you're going to be, it doesn't move in rotation to Earth. So if it's here, it'll always be in the same spot no matter how the Earth turns. And this star changes every couple millennium, I believe. It takes a very long time for it to change. So our current North Star is Polaris, and it will be for the remainder of our lives in the foreseeable future.
Presumably so. Now, Muggles, they have learned how to use these constellations well. They have some other tools that they use, like this beautiful contraption here.
This is an old ship's compass. And what makes this unique is its gyroscopic stabilization. So even as I shift it down, you can see that it still rotates and keeps its north orientation.
And this is beneficial because it was used on ships, right? Muggle ships, they were moving.
So as the tides moved, the compass stayed the same.
And not only that, but we have over here, a Muggle Sextant, which is another tool used during the 1940s, during their World War. And it was used to keep track of angular distances, so how far between the horizon and the objects you were looking at in the sky. And this is the one that they used. However, we also have a ancient one.
This is another version of a sextant. So a sextant is used to measure the angular distance between two objects in the sky. And while all of these tools are cool, they don't give us a complete look at what is happening in the sky.
Right. And so actually Celestina Cresswell created another tool kind of combining the techniques of a sextant, of a compass, an astro
armillary
and an armillary sphere, and combine these all into one to create what we know as a planisphere.
And we are lucky enough to have Celestina Cresswell's original planisphere here with us today. Yes, that is correct.
I'm so excited that you brought this with you, Professor, because it has all of her original notes and a lot of different diagrams that are going to tell you a little bit more about how to use it.
So a planisphere actually rotates. So if we look at it, we have this inner disk, which has a very detailed map of all the constellations. And we slide it into here and we line up the date. So today we are in May, so let's do what it's going to look like at midnight tonight. And on the north horizon line, east horizon line, west horizon line, and south horizon line, this will be what the sky looks like. So this is her original planisphere. You can see her notes and calculations that she has etched into here, including this. This is actually Ursa Minor and Polaris.
Indeed. And we're excited today because we want you to try and make one of your own planispheres. Now, it may not be as hardcore as Celestina's because she spent years perfecting this tool, but we do have in your packet a template. It should look like this, where we have a template like this for the holder, a star wheel with the constellations on it, and a star wheel that is blank. So, to create your own star wheel, we're going to start by cutting out the template, just the outline of the holder around the edges, and then you're also going to cut out that gray oval in the middle. We call it the viewing center. And so once you've cut that out, you're also going to do this with the star wheels.
Just along that outer circle is exactly.
Now once you have all these cut out, that's really the most important part. You can take a bit of file folder and glue them on top of it so you can make it a little sturdier. I mean, Celestina made hers out of a thin piece of like granite, I believe, right? Stone?
Yes, she actually used magic to cut it out of a granite mountain.
Amazing. So you can use magic constructors. We'd like you to do analog or Muggle style, if you will, just so you get the idea of how to create it. But once you have it cut out and possibly stabilized, we are going to have something that looks like this. So I've got some reinforcement on the back here.
Yeah, note how on the folding line she did not put any reinforcing cardboard or manila. This just makes it easier for it to turn and for the wheel to rotate.
Exactly.
Now, I would like to point out that our planisphere has been generously, the template has been generously given to us by a name known among both magical and muggle folk.
Correct.
It is Dominic Ford, and if you would like to learn more about his work and his contributions to astronomy, we have also listed his website and other resources within the packet.
And please check that out.
Please.
Once you have your planisphere template all cut out and glued, if you'd like to something sturdier, you're just going to fold it on the bottom there. Fold up the little pointed part up so that pointed part is right in the middle of the viewing window. And so then you'll notice it's a nice little pocket, right? You can fit something in there. And then you can take either some kind of adhesive or a binding charm just along the edges to seal it up. And once you have it sealed, you can place the wheel inside, like this one has it. Precisely. And then if you want, we have one of these little pins, a holder here, to keep it in place. You pin it to the back. That's just for a little more security. You don't have to have the pin. But that's essentially it. Once you have the sides binded and it's stuck in place, you can then rotate the wheel to find the correct date and time and see the window.
So why we are having you do this activity is actually to perform a very important spell, the Starmark Spell. This spell was pioneered by Cresswell in her early days, and it is one of the hallmark spells for this sort of magic.
Indeed. And she used it while she was actually working with like the Magical Congress of the United States and the Ministry of Magic. She used it actually to hunt down some of the dark wizards and also to use make some really amazing discoveries in dark sky areas. But it takes a open area and using the knowledge of constellations that we've already talked about and the knowledge of stars as well, she uses the light from those stars to rearrange it a bit. Now it's not directly moving the stars, though it does
manipulating the brightness, if I'm correct. Like the position of the stars do not change, merely the light that you're allowing in changes.
So it's a light manipulation spell, known as Symbolus Adstrum. And it's used to create like a picture in the sky. It's very similar to the Curse Mors Morta, which we're not going to talk about today.
We will not be discussing any dark arts in these videos, thank you.
Not at all. But it is a similar technique, though Mors Morta is a corruption of Celestina Cresswell's light manipulation technique.
Horrible corruption.
Very much so. But it is fairly easy to perform.
If I'm not mistaken, that chart is one of Celestina's original marks.
I'm so glad you brought this as well. So this is a star wheel that Celestina used, and you can see that she has drawn on it. So rather than having the constellations marked like in this star wheel, she's used the stars that are already in the sky and drawn on her own. This is the one for the bat. So it creates a constellation, a new constellation, using existing stars that you can use as like a location marker or a sign to somebody else. And you can do that as well. You just need to think of what image your mark is going to take. It could be an animal, it could be a person, it could even be a letter. I know a lot of people that do that as well.
Right, so you must merely sit down with the blank version of the star wheel and decide what mark you want to impart upon the sky. And just take a second to channel your own magic, your own energy, and decide what you want to show, when you want to show it. Draw it out, and then perform the spell.
And once you have it drawn out, you're just going to stand in a fairly clear area. You point your wand directly at the sky or towards where you want the mark to appear. You're going to need to pronounce clearly the word Symbolus Adstrum. And while you do so, you make the movement that goes up, a slight pause at the top, down, and then across like this. So if I were performing the spell, I visualize my pre-drawn constellation, point my wand, and go Symbolus Adstrum, and the mark would appear in the sky. And that is all I think we have for this lesson. But please take time to draw your own constellation, study your Star Wheels a bit, and then meet us in the next lesson for our next activity.
Thank you, and have a wonderful day.